There's a lot of terrifying things in the world of ReZero. I mean, Rem Twister Edition still haunts my dreams, but I would go as far to say, for me personally, the thing that actually terrified me the most was Pandora. A character who seemingly would be, in any other anime, just a normal girl by the looks of it. No cute design, that's all it is. But when you have a seemingly emotionless glare, despite there being this faint smile staring down to the deepest and darkest parts of your soul, and you can see her be shredded not once but twice in an episode, and still the same face, no changes. It's kind of like that disappointed mother where she's not mad at you, she's just disappointed you did that, which hurts all the more, and then she just banishes you as she finishes up the job. Her authority is ridiculous, and as a viewer, it makes for incredibly engaging content. But if you put yourself in their shoes, I feel like that's more terrifying than Satan coming down saying, I'm gonna drag you to the deepest pits of hell. This was something else. And generally when I watch an episode of ReZero, I'm like, alright, I know exactly what I want to dive into. I know exactly what I want to say. But honestly, the day our boy laughed, it left me near speechless. This is a show that still finds a way to just continue to improve. And it really doesn't feel like we're speeding to get to certain content. It feels like we're taking our time with this trial. And in doing so, it makes it feel all the more meaty in substance, as if it's not just a simple, oh, Amelia goes to her trial, she learns something sad about her backstory, she defeats the trial, Subaru goes to the mansion, all is well, that's how it goes. Instead, what we're having is that clearly we're going into next week still part of the trial. Most likely, that's going to be the point where the man we used to know comes into play, not this nice little bishop who is trying to protect a loved one and to protect little Amelia. Clearly, that's going to happen, and I think at this point it's probably due to the fact of his horrible hands that he kind of injected into himself, which is quite interesting. I mean, I was wondering, like, how he got his abilities to use these unforeseen hands, and in this episode we get the clarification, and so far, so good. But based on the authority of this woman, I mean, is she gonna be the reason why Mother Fortuna ends up dead, or what's gonna happen, right? I mean, this man clearly is not gonna be able to keep his sanity forever. Does he lose his sanity when she dies? Does he lose his sanity when he uses his powers too much, right? There's a lot of things that could eat away at him, and it's gonna be brutal next week, I have a feeling. But I think just in terms of pure information, you just take a step back and you just really continue to look at past conversations. I mean, there's been so many times where Beatrice would say something and you'd kind of be like, hey, wait a minute, what are you talking about? Why do you know this character? Or why are you mentioning this character's name? And you get, basically this episode kicks off with like 8 minutes or so of, we have Akitano, we have Beatrice, we have the girl who all the other clones are based off of, and just like the idea of like what built that relationship, and the idea of even seeing our boy Roswell before everything went haywire, just seeing Sanctuary before it became what it clearly is, and that starts getting your mind racing. You're like, okay, this is going to be the episode, this is what we're going to see, and then they throw you right back into the depths of hell. And it's such a fascinating episode because generally I feel like these are the types of episodes that can really become boring. Because last week you get the reveal, everyone's shocked because they're like, oh, the crazy lunatic we've come to know and love, but also know and hate, he actually was a normal person. That gets everyone excited because it's a complete curveball. Entering this episode, because they didn't completely wrap up the kind of drama in the fight scene, you could easily bore the viewers. But I don't think many ReZero fans, if any, are going to come up and say, oh, this was a boring episode. Quite the contrary, this was a very engaging episode, watching all these things unfold and feeling the emotional weight on these characters' shoulders. I mean, Amelia's voice actress knocked it out of the park for a crying child just wanting everyone to run away, and for a child not knowing what's going on, and the fact that she, and from her perspective, clearly did something that caused all this. She left her room, she broke promises, she broke the rules. Is that why everything's happening? If I would have stayed in my room, would nothing have happened? And everyone's saying, you did nothing wrong, little girl, but we have to leave you because, yeah, we're about to die, but we're gonna die for your sake. We have to protect you. There's so much weight behind everything, and while you knew the goodbye scene between Amelia and her mother, and I love how she admits that she is her mother, even though she's not her biological mother, to her, that is her mother, and nothing will ever change that. And for her as well, she's saying, this is my daughter, but it's also my brother's, and it's also my sister-in-law's, all that type of stuff. For us, this is our daughter. And I love how there's just such a great family connection, and you knew that goodbye scene was probably the last time they will ever see each other. But the tears and the way they directed it, I think ReZero has a really interesting presentation style where generally when you have like very sad or happy scenes, they use sunsets or they kind of light up the scene a bit more. But for a very bright scene, I mean, this entire forest, this winter wonderland, has been a bright scene despite all of the chaos that has unfolded. And they had this really interesting stylization that really just brought together that parting scene so well and made you feel like this truly is the end and who knows what's going to happen next. There's so much pain, there's so much insanity, but seriously, the authority of having a man who lashes out in such a way that rips seemingly a body apart to the point of disintegration, comes back, pummels you into the ground and says, hey, you're gonna go back with your wives, and disappears. Hey, you lost your arm's back. Literally, whatever she says, it happens by the looks of it. And that is such a terrifying concept that makes it feel like there's no way for you to win. And it feels like the only one who would get out of that would be our boy Beetlejuice, because she's fascinated and proud that he was able to become who he currently is. Wow, that is, it's something. I think the fact that you have a character who is able to put a man who completely destroyed our characters in the very first episode of Season 2 into the ground and make them disappear, it just really puts into perspective power and what power truly is in the case of ReZero. And then when we think of Subaru, we're just like, how is this man gonna deal with some of this insanity? It's so fascinatingly terrifying, and I love it. There's just so much chaos, but rather than just having a 30-minute episode that just is non-stop action, the most intense part of these episodes are the moments before something big happens. The words being spoken, the uncertainty, the underlying messages behind those words. So when something gets thrown at a character or a character gets ripped apart, it feels like we've been waiting 10 minutes for that to happen, and now that it has, we wish it hadn't happened. There's just a lot of uncertainty with ReZero right now, and it feels so good to once again have another 30-minute episode. And I always say, I know some people really want to see the opening. I'm still wondering if there even is a visual for the opening. I wouldn't be shocked at this point if the opening only plays at the very last episode of Season 2, after they kind of cover all the meaty substance that they need to. But it's so interesting because can you really imagine this backstory in 3 episodes if it was a traditional 22-minute give or take episode? How would you get this much substance and quality? There's no way, it feels like. But it's so fascinating to see the direction the production committee and Studio White Fox have taken to really make sure that you don't feel the need to come and say, you know what, the web novel, the light novel, they really did it a lot better. Here's all this information they skipped over. No, like, they're clearly getting to it, and the way they just condense so much information into such a meaty package, I never find myself zoning out, I never find myself saying, this is boring. It just feels like we're getting more information, more clarification, and the more we see with backstories like this, the more it puts into perspective previous actions in the first season, and even in the first core of Season 2. This is an incredible ride that I am both excited and terrified to see how this backstory is probably going to wrap up next week if I had to bet. What our boy is going to look like whenever the chaos happens. I mean, the thing that would probably trigger him to losing his mind would be the loss of his love, but also clearly those hands kind of taking over his body is the best way to put it. So what's that going to look like, and how happy is Pandora going to be when it probably does happen? Interesting stuff. It is fascinating, and ReZero just continues to get better. It feels like the more information we get, the more we appreciate the story as a whole. It always feels like everything has its importance to the story, big or small, and it just keeps getting better from here. I'd love to know everyone's thoughts down below. What did you think, and how engaged were you? Did you enjoy it as much as myself, or did you personally zone out while watching this, what I consider to be another amazing episode of ReZero Season 2? If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, show your support, and hit that subscribe button if you happen to be new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.